Gosh, I swear my life is like a sitcom sometimes. There I was, Daphne Mitchell, supposedly respected actress of stage and screen, sprinting down the street like a madwoman. My audition for the new Spielberg flick was in 20 minutes, and I was nowhere near the studio. "Wait!" I screamed, waving my arms like a lunatic as I saw the bus pulling away. By some miracle, the driver noticed and stopped. I clambered aboard, panting and sweating in my designer outfit. So much for making a good impression. As I fumbled for my fare, the bus lurched forward. I stumbled, losing my balance and careening into something soft yet solid. There was a yelp, followed by a splash, and suddenly I was covered in scalding hot coffee. "Oh shit!" I exclaimed, looking up to see who I'd crashed into. My eyes met a pair of startling green ones, framed by wisps of golden hair that had escaped a messy bun. The woman was gorgeous, even with her mouth hanging open in shock, and her blouse now sporting a massive brown stain. "I'm so sorry," we both said at the same time, then laughed nervously. "No, really," I insisted, grabbing some napkins from my purse. "This is entirely my fault. Please, let me pay for your dry cleaning." She waved me off, dabbing at her shirt. "Don't worry about it. These things happen." I couldn't help but notice how the wet fabric clung to her curves. Heat rose to my cheeks, and I quickly averted my gaze. What the hell was wrong with me? I hadn't felt this flustered around a woman since Amelia. "I'm Daphne," I said, extending my hand. "Alyssa," she replied, her grip firm and warm. "Alyssa Green." We spent the rest of the bus ride chatting and laughing, the initial awkwardness melting away. I learned she was an aspiring producer's assistant, trying to break into the industry. When my stop came, I found myself reluctant to leave. "Here," I said, pulling out a business card. "If you ever need anything, a reference, a foot in the door, or just someone to grab coffee with, preferably without wearing it this time." Alyssa's smile was dazzling. "I'd like that." As I hurried off the bus, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. It wasn't until I was halfway to the audition that I realized I was still covered in coffee stains. "Damn it," I muttered, ducking into a nearby boutique. I'd have to buy a new outfit and change on the fly. As I rifled through racks of clothing, my mind kept drifting back to Alyssa's laugh, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. I shook my head, trying to focus. I had a career-changing audition to nail. I couldn't afford to be distracted by some random woman I'd met on a bus, no matter how captivating she was. But even as I rehearsed my lines in the dressing room, all I could think about was those green eyes and the way my skin had tingled when our hands touched. I hadn't felt a connection like that in years, not since. No. I pushed thoughts of Amelia firmly aside. That chapter of my life was closed, the wounds still raw despite the time that had passed. I couldn't afford to open my heart again, especially not to someone in the industry. The stakes were too high, the potential for heartbreak too great. And yet, as I stepped out of the boutique in my hastily purchased outfit, I couldn't help but hope that Alyssa would call. Just for coffee, I told myself. Nothing more. Little did I know that spilled latte was about to change my life in ways I could never have imagined. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. 2 weeks after the coffee incident, I found myself in desperate need of a new personal assistant. My previous one, a neurotic perfectionist named Chad, had quit in a huff over some perceived slight. I was drowning in a sea of unanswered emails and conflicting appointments when I remembered the business card I'd given Alyssa. "What the hell?" I muttered, fishing it out of my purse. "Worth a shot." To my surprise, Alyssa jumped at the opportunity. Within days, she had my chaotic life sorted into color-coded spreadsheets and my inbox cleared. I was impressed, but more than that, I was distracted. I couldn't help but notice the way her brow furrowed in concentration as she worked, or how her fingers danced gracefully across the keyboard. Late nights at the office became the norm, and I found myself looking forward to our takeout dinners and easy conversation more than I cared to admit. One evening, as we pored over scripts for my next project, I caught her staring at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. Alyssa blinked, a blush creeping up her neck. "Nothing, I think this role could be really good for you. It's complex, challenging. It'll show a side of you the audience hasn't seen before." Her words warmed me more than they should have. "You think so?" She nodded, leaning in closer to point out a particular scene. The scent of her perfume, something light and floral, enveloped me. I fought the urge to close my eyes and breathe her in. "Especially this part," Alyssa said, her finger brushing against mine as she traced a line of dialogue. A jolt of electricity shot through me at the contact. I cleared my throat, trying to focus on the words in front of me instead of the warmth of her body so close to mine. "You're right, it's intense." Our eyes met, and for a moment, the air between us seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Then Alyssa's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. "Shit, it's late," she said, glancing at the screen. "I should go." I nodded, suddenly eager for some space to clear my head. "Of course, thanks for staying to help with this." As she gathered her things, I couldn't help but wonder if I was imagining the lingering looks, the casual touches that seemed to linger a beat too long. Was I projecting my own confused feelings onto her, or was there really something brewing between us? The next few weeks were a delicious sort of torture. Costume fittings became an exercise in self-control as Alyssa helped me in and out of various outfits, her fingers occasionally brushing against bare skin. During private rehearsals in my living room, I found myself stumbling over lines I knew by heart, distracted by the way she bit her lip as she watched me. One afternoon, as we ran through a particularly emotional scene, I felt myself getting lost in the character's pain and anger. When I finished, there were tears in my eyes. "Daphne," Alyssa breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "That was incredible." Before I knew what was happening, she had crossed the room and pulled me into a tight hug. I stiffened for a moment, then melted into her embrace, burying my face in her neck. We stood like that for what felt like hours, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. When we finally pulled apart, Alyssa's eyes were shining with something I couldn't quite name. Her hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb gently wiping away a stray tear. "You're amazing," she whispered. "You know that, right?" I laughed softly, leaning into her touch. "I'm a mess." "A beautiful mess," she countered, her gaze dropping to my lips for a fraction of a second. The air between us grew thick with possibility. I found myself swaying towards her, drawn by some invisible force. Our faces were inches apart, and I could feel her breath on my skin. Just as I thought she might kiss me, a loud knock at the door made us both jump apart. "Ms. Mitchell?" called a voice from the hallway. "Your car is here for the premiere." I closed my eyes, cursing under my breath. "Coming?" I called back. When I looked at Alyssa again, the moment had passed. She was all business once more, smoothing down her shirt and avoiding my gaze. "We should get you ready," she said briskly, moving towards the closet where my gown hung. As I watched her busy herself with last-minute preparations, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. The carefully maintained professional boundaries were crumbling, and I wasn't sure if I was terrified or exhilarated by the prospect. What I did know was that Alyssa Green was quickly becoming more than just my assistant. And as much as that scared me, I couldn't bring myself to push her away. Just when I thought my life couldn't get any more complicated, the universe decided to throw me a curveball named Amelia Gray. My ex-girlfriend, the woman who'd broken my heart and nearly derailed my career, waltzed back into my life like she'd never left. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Alyssa and I were going over my schedule for the upcoming press tour. The tension between us had been palpable since that near kiss in my living room, but we'd both been studiously ignoring it. Professional boundaries and all that jazz. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer it. "Daphne, darling," purred a voice I'd hoped never to hear again. "It's been far too long." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Amelia? How did you get this number?" Alyssa looked up sharply. Concern etched across her features. I waved her off, mouthing, "It's fine," even as my heart raced. "Oh, I have my ways," Amelia laughed. "Listen, sweetie, we need to talk. Remember that little contract we signed back in the day? Well, it seems you've been in breach." My stomach dropped. The contract. The one I'd foolishly signed when we were together, giving her a percentage of my earnings for career guidance. I'd thought it was null and void after our messy breakup. "That contract was terminated years ago," I hissed, trying to keep my voice low. We both agreed. "Did we?" Amelia's tone turned icy. "Because I have a copy right here that says otherwise, and let's not forget about those private photos I still have. Wouldn't want those getting out, would we?" I felt like I was going to be sick. Those photos. Gosh, I'd been so young and naive. I'd trusted her completely. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, just what's owed to me. We'll discuss the details soon. Ta-ta for now, darling." The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling like the ground had just opened up beneath me. "Daphne?" Alyssa's voice snapped me back to reality. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile, but it felt brittle on my face. "It's nothing, just an old friend." Alyssa didn't buy it for a second. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. The warmth of her touch steadied me. "Hey," she said softly, "you can talk to me. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." For a moment, I was tempted to spill everything, but shame and fear held me back. What would Alyssa think of me if she knew about my past with Amelia? About the stupid mistakes I'd made? "It's just some contract stuff," I said finally. "Nothing to worry about." Alyssa's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press. Instead, she squeezed my hand gently. "Okay, but I'm here if you need me, for anything." The sincerity in her voice made my throat tight. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Over the next few days, Amelia's threats hung over me like a dark cloud. I jumped every time my phone buzzed, dreading another call. Alyssa noticed my distraction, of course. How could she not? But I kept brushing off her concerns, insisting I was just stressed about the upcoming film. It all came to a head a week later. Alyssa and I were leaving a meeting with my publicist when I spotted a familiar figure leaning against my car. "Shit," I muttered, stopping dead in my tracks. Amelia pushed off the car, sauntering towards us with a predatory smile. "Daphne, darling, I thought it was time we had that chat." Alyssa stepped slightly in front of me, her posture protective. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Amelia's eyes flicked to Alyssa, then back to me. Her smile widened. "Oh, how adorable. Is this your new little plaything, Daphne? Does she know about us?" I felt Alyssa stiffen beside me. "There is no us," I said firmly. "Whatever you think you're entitled to, Amelia, you're not getting it. That contract isn't worth the paper it's printed on." Amelia's expression hardened. "Are you sure about that? Because I have a folder full of very interesting photos that say otherwise. I wonder what the tabloids would pay for those." "You wouldn't dare," I hissed, even as fear clawed at my insides. "Try me," Amelia sneered. Before I could respond, Alyssa stepped forward. "I don't know who you are," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "but you need to leave, now. Before I call security." Amelia laughed. "Oh, honey, you have no idea what you're getting into with this one. Did she tell you about our little arrangement? About how she—" "Enough," I shouted, surprising even myself. "Just enough, Amelia. Whatever game you're playing, I'm not interested. Leave me alone, or I swear to God, I'll—" "You'll what?" Amelia taunted. "Sue me? Go ahead. I'm sure the press will love that story." With that, she turned on her heel and stalked away, leaving me shaken and furious. Alyssa turned to me, her eyes blazing with a mix of concern and determination. "Okay, enough secrets. You're going to tell me exactly what's going on, and we're going to fix this, together." As I looked into her fierce green eyes, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, with Alyssa by my side, I could face this demon from my past and come out stronger on the other side. The aftermath of Amelia's ambush left me raw and exposed. I had no choice but to come clean to Alyssa about my past, spilling the sordid details over a bottle of wine in my living room. To her credit, she listened without judgment, her hand steady on mine as I recounted my ill-fated romance with Amelia and the mistakes that followed. "So that's it," I finished, draining my glass. "Now you know what a mess you're really working for." Alyssa's eyes softened. "Daphne, we all have pasts. What matters is who you are now, and the woman I know is strong, talented, and sure as hell doesn't deserve to be blackmailed." Her unwavering support brought tears to my eyes. Before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in and pressed my lips to hers. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then Alyssa's hand cupped my cheek, and she kissed me back with a passion that took my breath away. When we finally parted, both breathless, Alyssa rested her forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that for so long," she murmured. "Me too," I admitted, marveling at how right it felt. But our newfound bliss was short-lived. The next day brought a fresh wave of panic as paparazzi swarmed outside my house, shouting questions about Amelia and waving grainy photos. Shit, I muttered, peeking through the curtains. She must have leaked something to the press. Alyssa's jaw set in determination. We're not letting her win. Come on, we're getting out of here. Before I knew it, she had packed a bag and ushered me out the back door to a waiting car. As we sped away from the chaos, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Where are we going? I asked, watching the city blur past. Alyssa grinned. I have a friend with a beach house. Thought we could use a weekend away to regroup and plan our next move. The beach house turned out to be a cozy bungalow nestled in the dunes, the sound of crashing waves a soothing backdrop. As we settled in, I found myself relaxing for the first time in weeks. That evening, we walked along the shore, the setting sun painting the sky in breathtaking hues. Alyssa's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining naturally. Thank you, I said softly, for everything. She squeezed my hand. You don't have to thank me. I'm in this with you, Daphne, whatever comes next. I stopped, turning to face her. The fading light caught the gold in her hair, making her look almost ethereal. I think I'm falling in love with you, I confessed, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Alyssa's smile was radiant. I think I'm already there, she replied, pulling me close. Our kiss was gentle at first, then grew more passionate as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beneath the horizon. We made our way back to the bungalow, shedding clothes as we went. What followed was a night of tender exploration and passionate discovery. Alyssa's touch set my skin on fire, her lips mapping constellations across my body. We came together in a tangle of limbs and breathless sighs, finding a rhythm as natural as the waves outside our window. Afterward, as we lay entwined in the moonlight, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I could face them with Alyssa by my side. The next morning, reality intruded in the form of a call from my agent. Daphne, have you seen the news? He demanded without preamble. I groaned, burying my face in Alyssa's shoulder. How bad is it? It's complicated, he hedged. Look, I need you back in the city. We need to get ahead of this story before it spirals. Alyssa, overhearing, nodded resolutely. We'll be there, she said, loud enough for my agent to hear. We? He questioned. Yes, we, I confirmed, meeting Alyssa's eyes. My girlfriend and I will be there soon. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Girlfriend? Daphne, are you sure that's wise right now? It's the only thing I am sure of, I replied, ending the call before he could argue further. As we packed up to leave our brief sanctuary, I felt a mix of dread and determination. The bubble of our perfect weekend was about to burst, thrusting us into a media storm I wasn't sure I was ready to weather. Hey, Alyssa said softly, cupping my face in her hands. We've got this, together. I nodded, drawing strength from her unwavering support. Together, I echoed. The drive back to the city was filled with strategy sessions and contingency plans. By the time we pulled up to my house, a small army of paparazzi had gathered. Alyssa squeezed my hand. Ready? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. As I'll ever be. We stepped out of the car hand in hand, facing the flashing cameras, and shouted questions as a united front. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, like stepping off a cliff and realizing you could fly. As we pushed through the crowd, I caught snippets of their questions. Daphne, is it true about you and Amelia Gray? Who's your new girlfriend? Are the rumors about blackmail true? Just before we reached the front door, I paused, turning to face the sea of cameras. Alyssa looked at me questioningly, but I just smiled and pulled her close. No comment, I said clearly, then kissed her soundly, right there on my doorstep for all the world to see. The camera flashes exploded around us, but I barely noticed. In that moment, with Alyssa in my arms, I felt invincible. Let Amelia do her worst. I had something now that she could never touch, real love, built on trust and mutual respect. As we finally made it inside, closing the door on the chaos outside, I knew our battle was far from over. But for the first time since this whole mess began, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The morning after our dramatic doorstep kiss, I woke to find our faces plastered across every tabloid in the country. Daphne's Sapphic scandal, screamed one headline. Actress Amor, Daphne's secret girlfriend revealed, declared another. My phone was buzzing incessantly with calls and messages from friends, colleagues, and vultures hoping to get the inside scoop. Gosh, I muttered, tossing the phone aside. So much for keeping a low profile. Alyssa, already dressed and typing furiously on her laptop, looked up with a wry smile. Well, you did kind of throw subtlety out the window with that kiss. I groaned, burying my face in a pillow. I know, I was tired of hiding. She came over and sat on the bed, running her fingers through my tangled hair. Hey, no regrets, remember? We're in this together. I leaned into her touch, drawing strength from her presence. You're right, so what's our next move? Before Alyssa could answer, my phone rang again. This time, it was my agent, Howard. Daphne, he said, his voice tense. We need to talk, now. An hour later, we were seated in Howard's sleek downtown office. The view of the city skyline was spectacular, but the atmosphere was anything but. Do you have any idea what you've done? Howard paced behind his desk, waving a stack of newspapers. We had a carefully crafted image for you, Daphne. America's sweetheart, remember? And now. This! I bristled at his tone. This what, Howard? Me being honest about who I am? He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. It's not about that. It's about timing, about control of the narrative. And now we've got producers calling, questioning your commitment to projects. Some are even threatening to pull out. My stomach dropped. What? But I haven't done anything wrong. Welcome to Hollywood, darling, he said grimly, where perception is everything. Alyssa, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. So we changed the perception. Daphne's story is one of authenticity, of courage. That's something to be celebrated, not hidden. Howard eyed her skeptically. And you are? Alyssa Green, she said, extending her hand. Daphne's girlfriend and personal assistant. He shook her hand, then turned back to me. Daphne, you need to think carefully about your next steps. Maybe it's best if we issue a statement. Downplay this relationship. Say it was a misunderstanding. No, I cut him off, my voice firm. I'm not hiding anymore, Howard. Not for you, not for some backwards producers, not for anyone. The look on his face was a mix of frustration and resignation. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was not being true to myself sooner, I replied, standing up. If that costs me some roles, so be it. I'd rather play a proud lesbian than a closeted straight girl any day. With that, Alyssa and I walked out, leaving Howard sputtering behind us. In the elevator, she turned to me with a mix of pride and concern in her eyes. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. It could impact your career. I pulled her close, resting my forehead against hers. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. True to Howard's prediction, a few projects did fall through. But for every door that closed, it seemed two more opened. LGBTQ+ organizations reached out, offering support and opportunities. Fans flooded my social media with messages of encouragement. One afternoon, as Alyssa and I were leaving a meeting with a progressive production company, we were ambushed by a group of network executives. Daphne, darling, one of them, a sleek woman in her 50s, purred. We need to have a chat about your situation. I felt Alyssa tense beside me. My situation? I echoed, keeping my voice level. This phase you're going through, another exec chimed in. It's causing quite a stir. We think it might be best if you lay low for a while, maybe date a nice young man to smooth things over. I was stunned into silence, but Alyssa wasn't. She stepped forward, green eyes flashing with anger. Excuse me, she said, her voice dangerously calm. But Daphne's relationship is not a phase or a situation. It's her life. And if you can't see the value in having a talented, authentic actress on your network, then you're the ones who need to rethink your position. The executives looked taken aback. One of them, a portly man with a receding hairline, puffed up indignantly. Now see here, young lady. No, you see here, Alyssa cut him off. Daphne Mitchell is one of the most gifted actresses of her generation. She's brave, she's honest, and she's got a fan base that would follow her to the ends of the earth. If you're too short-sighted to see that, I'm sure there are plenty of other networks who will. With that, she took my hand and led me away, leaving the executives gaping in our wake. Once we were out of earshot, I pulled her into a fierce hug. That, I whispered, was incredibly hot. Alyssa laughed a bit shakily. I can't believe I just did that. Oh gosh, I probably just torpedoed your career. I shook my head, cupping her face in my hands. You just saved it. And me. I kissed her then, right there in the parking lot, not caring who saw. As we drove home, I felt a sense of lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead might be rocky, but with Alyssa by my side, I was ready to face whatever came our way. Little did I know our biggest challenge was still to come. Just when I thought life was finally settling into a new normal, Amelia decided to make her grand re-entrance. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was on set filming a particularly intense scene for my new indie film. Alyssa was off to the side, watching with that mix of pride and adoration that never failed to make my heart skip a beat. Cut, the director called. Great work, Daphne. Let's take 5 and then we'll do one more for safety. I was headed towards Alyssa when a commotion near the entrance caught my attention, and there she was, in all her glory, Amelia Gray, sauntering onto my set like she owned the place. Daphne, darling, she called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Did you miss me? The entire crew fell silent, all eyes darting between Amelia and me. I felt Alyssa's hand on my arm, steadying me. Amelia, I said, forcing my voice to remain calm. This is a closed set. You need to leave. She laughed, a sound that used to make my knees weak but now just made my skin crawl. Oh, come now. Is that any way to greet an old friend? Especially one who holds so many of your secrets. I saw Alyssa tense beside me, her green eyes flashing with anger. Whatever you think you have on Daphne, it's not worth anything, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Amelia's gaze flickered to Alyssa, a smirk playing on her lips. Ah, the new toy speaks. Tell me, dear, has she shown you her wild side yet? The one she's so desperate to keep hidden from her adoring public. That's enough, I snapped, stepping forward. Whatever game you're playing, Amelia, it's over. You have no power here. Her eyes narrowed. No power? Shall we test that theory? She reached into her bag, pulling out a thick manila envelope. Remember these, Daphne? I wonder what your fans would think if they saw their precious star in such compromising positions. My heart raced, but I refused to let her see me sweat. Go ahead, I said, surprising even myself with the steadiness of my voice. Release them. I'm done being ashamed of my past. Amelia's smug expression faltered for a moment. Clearly, this wasn't the reaction she'd been expecting. You're bluffing, she accused. Try me, I challenged, crossing my arms. For a tense moment, we stared each other down. Then, to everyone's surprise, Alyssa stepped forward. Ms. Gray, she said, her tone professionally polite but with an underlying steel. I think it's time we had a chat, in private. Amelia raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what could you possibly have to say that I'd be interested in hearing? Alyssa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Trust me, you'll want to hear this, unless, of course, you'd prefer I share what I know about your other business ventures with the press? I watched in amazement as the color drained from Amelia's face. Without another word, she allowed Alyssa to lead her off to a quiet corner of the set. The director, bless him, called for an early lunch break, dispersing the gawking crew. I paced anxiously, watching Alyssa and Amelia engaged in what looked like an intense conversation. After what felt like hours but was probably only 15 minutes, Alyssa returned, alone. What happened? I asked, searching her face for clues. Where's Amelia? Alyssa's smile was triumphant. Gone. And she won't be bothering you again. I blinked in disbelief. Just like that? How? She shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. Let's just say I did some digging after our last encounter. Turns out, Amelia's been running a little side hustle, blackmailing other celebrities. I may have implied that I had evidence that could interest the authorities. I stared at her, a mix of awe and love swelling in my chest. Alyssa Green, you are absolutely incredible. She blushed, ducking her head. I just couldn't stand seeing her hurt you anymore. I pulled her close, not caring who was watching. My hero, I murmured, before kissing her soundly. When we parted, both a little breathless, I noticed a small crowd had gathered. Whispers and pointed looks were being exchanged, and I knew the story of Amelia's dramatic appearance and exit would be all over the tabloids by nightfall. For once, I didn't care. What do you say we give them something to really talk about? I asked Alyssa, a reckless grin spreading across my face. She matched my smile with one of her own. What did you have in mind? In response, I turned to face our impromptu audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice carrying across the now silent set. I have an announcement to make. All eyes were on me as I took Alyssa's hand in mine. This amazing woman beside me is not just my assistant or my girlfriend. She is the love of my life, my partner in every sense of the word. And I don't care who knows it. With that, I dipped Alyssa into a dramatic kiss, eliciting cheers and applause from the crew. As I set her back on her feet, both of us laughing and a little giddy, I saw phones out, no doubt capturing the moment for posterity and social media. You're crazy, Alyssa whispered, her eyes shining with unshed happy tears. Crazy about you, I replied, pulling her close again. As we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms while cameras flashed around us, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever storms we'd weathered, whatever challenges still lay ahead, I knew that with Alyssa by my side, I could face anything. The director's voice cut through the commotion. All right, lovebirds, that's enough free publicity. Can we get back to making a movie now? Laughing, Alyssa gave me one last quick kiss before shooing me back to my mark. As I took my position, ready to dive back into character, I caught her eye and winked. For the first time in my career, I felt truly, completely free. And it was the most exhilarating feeling in the world. The fallout from our on-set declaration was, in a word, explosive. By the time we wrapped for the day, #DaphneandAlyssa was trending on every social media platform. My phone was buzzing non-stop with messages from friends, family, and what felt like every publicist in Hollywood. Well, Alyssa said as we collapsed onto my couch that evening, I think it's safe to say the cat's out of the bag. I laughed, pulling her close. More like we threw the cat off the roof with a megaphone. We spent the next few days in a whirlwind of interviews, carefully crafted statements, and more phone calls than I could count. Howard, bless his cynical heart, managed to spin our love story into a PR goldmine. Suddenly, I wasn't just Daphne Mitchell, talented actress. I was Daphne Mitchell, LGBTQ+ icon, and champion of authenticity. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and more than a little terrifying. Are you sure you're okay with all this? I asked Alyssa one night as we scrolled through yet another article dissecting our relationship. I never meant to drag you into the spotlight like this. She set aside her tablet and cupped my face in her hands. Daphne, I'd follow you into the depths of hell if that's where you needed to go. A little media circus? That's nothing. I kissed her then, marveling at how I'd gotten lucky enough to find someone like her. The real test came a month later at the Stardust Awards. It was my first major public appearance since coming out, and the nerves were hitting me hard. I don't know if I can do this, I muttered, fidgeting with my dress in front of the mirror. Maybe we should have eased into this more. A small event, not the biggest night in Hollywood. Alyssa appeared behind me, resplendent in an emerald gown that made her eyes pop. Hey, she said softly, wrapping her arms around my waist. You've got this. We've got this. Remember why we're doing this? I took a deep breath, nodding. To be true to ourselves, to show others it's okay to be who they are. Exactly, she smiled, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. Now let's go show them what real love looks like. The red carpet was a blur of flashing cameras and shouted questions, but with Alyssa's hand in mine, I felt invincible. We posed for photos, answered questions about our relationship, and even shared a kiss that I'm sure will be plastered across magazines for weeks to come. As we made our way inside, I caught sight of a young woman watching us with tears in her eyes. She couldn't have been more than 20. Excuse me, she said, her voice trembling. I wanted to thank you. Seeing you two so open, so proud, it gives me hope. I felt my own eyes welling up as I pulled her into a hug. You are perfect just as you are, I whispered fiercely. Never let anyone tell you differently. As we took our seats, I squeezed Alyssa's hand. Thank you, I murmured. She looked at me quizzically. For what? For giving me the courage to be myself. For loving me through all of this craziness. The smile she gave me could have lit up the entire auditorium. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of glitz and glamour. And then, suddenly, I heard my name being called. And the award for Best Actress goes to Daphne Mitchell. The room erupted in applause as I sat there, momentarily stunned. Alyssa nudged me gently, her eyes shining with pride. Go on, love. Your audience awaits. In a daze, I made my way to the stage. As I stood there, clutching my award and staring out at a sea of faces, I felt a sudden calm wash over me. "Wow," I began, my voice steady. "This is unexpected and incredibly humbling. For years I stood on stages like this, accepting awards and accolades, all while hiding a huge part of who I was. I thought I had to choose between being true to myself and having a career I loved." I paused, my eyes finding Alyssa in the crowd. She nodded encouragingly, and I felt my heart swell. But I was wrong. Thanks to the love and support of an incredible woman, I've learned that real success, real happiness, comes from embracing every part of yourself. So this award? This isn't just for my performance on screen. This is for every person out there who's ever felt like they had to hide who they are to be accepted. You are seen, you are valued, and you are loved. The applause was deafening as I left the stage, but I barely heard it. All I could focus on was getting back to Alyssa. The moment I reached our table, she pulled me into a fierce embrace. "I am so proud of you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As we left the ceremony later that night, hand in hand and award in tow, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known before. The road ahead might not be easy. I knew there would still be challenges, still be people who didn't understand or accept us. But for the first time in my life, I was facing the future without fear. Because no matter what came our way, I knew I had found my home. And she was walking right beside me, her hand in mine, ready to take on the world together. A year can change everything. It's been exactly 365 days since that fateful awards ceremony, and my life is unrecognizable in the best possible way. I'm standing on the set of my directorial debut, an LGBTQ+ drama that's already generating buzz in indie film circles. Who would have thought that Daphne Mitchell, once typecast as the girl next door, would be calling the shots on a groundbreaking queer film? And, "Cut!" I call out, grinning as the actors nail a particularly emotional scene. "That was perfect, guys. Let's take 5. As the crew bustles around me, I feel a familiar presence at my side. Alyssa, my rock through all of this, hands me a steaming cup of coffee. "You're a lifesaver," I murmur, pressing a quick kiss to her cheek. She smiles, that same smile that still makes my heart skip a beat. "Just doing my job, Ms. Director." We share a quiet laugh at that. Alyssa's no longer my assistant. She's blazing her own trail now, having started a talent management company specializing in LGBTQ+ artists. It's been incredible watching her come into her own, advocating fiercely for those who've been overlooked by the industry for far too long. As we stand there, watching the controlled chaos of the set, I'm struck by how far we've come. The road hasn't always been smooth. There have been setbacks, critics, and moments of doubt. But through it all, we've had each other. "Hey," Alyssa says softly, nudging me. "Where'd you go just now?" I shake my head, smiling. Just thinking about how lucky I am. How different things were a year ago. She nods, her eyes softening. "It's been quite a ride, hasn't it?" Before I can respond, my assistant, gosh, that still feels weird to say, approaches with a harried expression. "Daphne, sorry to interrupt, but there's a problem with the lighting in the next scene. They need you to take a look." I sigh, squeezing Alyssa's hand. "Duty calls. Dinner later? Wouldn't miss it," she replies with a wink. The rest of the day flies by in a whirlwind of creative decisions and problem-solving. By the time I call wrap, the sun has long since set. As the crew begins to pack up, I feel a sense of accomplishment wash over me. We're creating something special here, something that could really make a difference. Alyssa's waiting for me by the car, looking radiant even after a long day of her own. "Ready to go, superstar?" I laugh, sliding into the passenger seat. God, yes, I'm starving. But as we pull out of the parking lot, I notice we're not heading towards our usual haunts. Us? "I think you took a wrong turn." She just smiles mysteriously. "Trust me." 20 minutes later, we're pulling up to a familiar sight, the bus stop where we first met. I turn to her confused. "What are we doing here?" Alyssa takes a deep breath, suddenly looking nervous. I thought this would be the perfect place for this. Before I can ask what this is, she's out of the car and opening my door. As I step out, I gasp. The entire bus stop is lit up with fairy lights, and there's a small table set for 2. "Alyssa, what?" She takes my hands in hers, her green eyes shining in the soft light. Daphne Mitchell, a year ago, my life changed forever when I quite literally ran into you. You've turned my world upside down in the most beautiful way, and I can't imagine spending another day without you by my side. My heart is pounding as she drops to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Will you marry me? For a moment, I'm speechless. Then, laughing and crying all at once, I pull her to her feet. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. The ring is perfect, a simple diamond flanked by 2 emeralds that match Alyssa's eyes. As she slides it onto my finger, I'm overcome with emotion. I love you so much, I whisper, pulling her close. I love you too, she murmurs against my lips. We stand there, wrapped in each other's arms, as the world continues to move around us. Cars pass by, people walk past, but in this moment, it's just us. Finally, Alyssa pulls back with a grin. So, future Mrs. Green Mitchell, shall we celebrate? I laugh, my heart feeling like it might burst with happiness. Lead the way, future Mrs. Mitchell Green. As we sit down to our candlelit dinner at the very spot where our story began, I'm struck by the beautiful symmetry of it all. A year ago, I was lost, hiding behind a carefully constructed image. Now I'm found, fully and unapologetically myself. The road ahead won't always be easy. There will be challenges, both personal and professional. But as I look across the table at the woman I love, I know that whatever comes our way, we'll face it together. Because that's the thing about love, real, honest, unashamed love. It doesn't solve all your problems or make life perfect, but it gives you the strength to face whatever life throws at you, hand in hand, heart to heart. As we toast to our future, I can't help but smile at the thought of all the adventures yet to come. Because this is just the beginning of our happily ever after.